I'm a bear MVP, word to growler. My glow up, magnifique Eiffel Tower. I show up, well y'all bitches show drama.
This shit hard. This shit hard. This shit hard.
Amazing.
This shit hard.
What's up, everybody? My name is Yanni Blue.
I'm Mike Brown.
And welcome to the Creators Toolkit Podcast Season 2. With us today, we have one of my favorite collaborators. She is so incredibly talented and just cool, the most chill person, the most even-keeled creative on the planet, and doing some amazing stuff outside of music in the worlds of beauty and wellness. And I'm just really excited to have you here. So everybody give it up for Katini.
Oh, hello. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
There was a soundboard, but we don't have it now.
Oh, no
A
worries.
round of applause.
We can fake it.
Right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in this room with you both.
Of course. No, it's we've been very intentional with this podcast specifically, but with this season, the theme that's been coming up for the people that we've been wanting to talk to have been folks who are really taking control of their careers and their paths and allowing themselves to pivot when they have to pivot, but also still getting to our goals. And I think it's such an important thing to highlight, especially in a world with social media and with careers that feel so linear,
Totally.
which are incredible for people who are able to do that, just kind of go straight to the goal. But there are the rest of us who have had to do these really cool zigzags. And I say cool because you look back and you're like, holy shit, I didn't think I could even do half of that stuff. And I know that you are one of those people who has, along your journey, collected all of these other really cool titles and accolades outside of just what you envisioned for yourself as an artist. So that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have you on here.
Oh,
So
thank you. Of course.
Yep. So I want to kick it off with I do my research and I listened to your Angela Yee interview.
Oh, yes.
And also from just talking to you, I know that you are, for the people that don't know, singer-songwriter, but you also are the founder of Katini Skin, which is an incredible skin. What do we define it? Skin oil.
Yeah,
brand?
skin. We do facial oils and serums, but we also have body too. So really in the world of beauty, skincare, and wellness.
Beauty, skincare, and wellness. And I know that when the opportunity first arose, I think you mentioned talking to your sister about it and almost being hesitant to jump into that world.
Yeah.
And I know your sister gave you some tough advice to go for it, but like tell us about just that moment of like your identity is so tied to being a singer-songwriter and you get this opportunity to pivot and you almost hesitate, but then you jumped. What was that?
Yeah, I think because, as an artist, that's my whole professional career, right? And we're constantly told, like, to be an artist and to be a pro at your work, you can only do music and you can only do one thing and just be narrow-minded and work towards your goal. And I really believe that every single human being on this planet has several talents and multiple talents. And if you have the opportunity that helps to exercise that talent and that can turn that into a job, you should take it. But I was in this place, it was like early 2020, where I had worked so hard. I'm originally from all over the place, but kind of moved from Australia to New York. And I had been here for I think coming up to my 10 year, no, maybe it was like 8 years. And I was at a point where I had just signed to an incredible publishing company, was about to sign to like my dream label. And then pandemic happened, everything fell through. And I just remember sitting in my room and being like, oh my goodness, like it feels like everything that I've worked towards has just been like wiped off the table. And I remember just sitting there being like, universe, give me something else to work on. Like I was writing sync songs and I was writing songs for, like pitching them to my publishing company. But I was also like, I want to do something outside of just writing songs in my room. And I remember we were writing a lot of songs together too over Zoom. And I looked out the window and I was like, I spoke to the sky and I was like, please help me. And literally a week later, this opportunity came where a mutual friend of one of my friends was looking for someone to partner with a natural beauty brand. And natural wellness and creating my own natural remedies has just been a huge part of my life ever since I was probably like 7 years old. So there's like a whole backstory to that, which I'll get into. But so that's been something that I'm like, okay, one day I want to share some of these incredible wisdom and techniques that I learned growing up through, whether it be at the school or through my mom or my grandmother, and just ancient wisdom that just sort of ran in my family that was around wellness. And then so this opportunity came, and I couldn't even correlate the two. I was like, oh, okay, that was always a dream, but then I kind of put that aside because I'm like, okay, I'm an artist, like focus on that. And then this opportunity came, and I was so excited to hear about it. And I was like, wait, what? I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm not doing anything else. It's a pandemic, whatever. And so I took the call with her. I loved everything that she was about, and she was really into natural beauty and really focusing on facial oils, which is something that I've grown up using. And then so I got really excited. I hung up the phone. I told my sister who I was living with, and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, I just spoke to this incredible woman that wants to start a brand with me, and I think we're going to work on something. And then like, as I was telling the story, but I'm like, I stopped myself and I'm like, yeah, but I guess I'm an artist. Like, I don't think now's the time to do that. And it was almost crazy to my sister because she was so excited with me. And then as I started like telling the story and then sort of rationalizing it and it stopped moving with an intuition, I was like, maybe it'll interfere with my music career, or maybe it will take up too much time or whatever it is. And I started overthinking it. And then I came to this conclusion of, actually, maybe it's not the right time for that. And my sister looks at me and was like, are you crazy? like you don't, like, it's, oh, so you're not doing anything in music right now, and you have these other talents, and I've known you since you were born, and you've always wanted to do something in wellness and beauty. Like, of course you should do it. And if the universe hands you something, there's going to be ways that you can take it on. It means that it's a part of your path, and you should accept it. And so it took for her really to like smack me over the head and say, and be like, you're insane. You're definitely going to move ahead with this. For me to be like, oh yeah, of course, I'm an artist. I can do other things because this is a part of my creativity and journey. But I think sometimes it's really, really important for us to have those people around us that love, trust, and know us from the core, to sometimes nudge us or push us or, you know, smack us in the right direction and make sure that you're reaching your full potential.
That's incredible.
That's really dope. I kind of want to go back to what you were saying about asking the universe to give you a sign.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know just how valuable is your spirituality in your creative journey and in your business, because those seem like spaces where spirituality is kind of like on the back burner as opposed to being on the forefront. So for you working in spaces like music and business, how much does it influence your decision making?
Everything. Because I feel spirituality is directly tied to intuition. And oftentimes we need clarity, we need peace, and we need a space of almost a pure mind to be able to receive and listen to the messages that come from within us. And oftentimes that, for me, it's when I'm meditating or I have mindful moments of just pushing away all the noise and being like, okay, what is my intuition telling me? And every time I've acted on it, it's always worked out. So, you know, we all have minds and brains, and we can think and rationalize all kinds of things. But when you think about all the magical moments that's happened in your life, it's always like, oh my God, how did that happen? I can't believe that happened. Which means that it came from a higher place rather than you know, thinking, okay, X equals Y equals Z, and I'm going to get to wherever I'm going to get to. It's always this whimsical, incredible moment where you can't even believe that you've got the job that you've got, or you can't believe that you're in this place that you are. So I would say 90% of it is really intuition, and then the other part of it, obviously, you need to know your craft and your skill. But yeah, that's the magical part of it.
That's really dope.
When you talk about taking the leap into Katini Skin, I recall, you know, connecting with you prior to that, and we did a couple sessions, and we're writing on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then I saw a couple, you know, a year later, you're doing all this incredible work. And for me, being a person that had connected with you in that way, it made a lot of sense because you've always exuded a lifestyle and like a luxury and like like everything you do has just the air to it. And it almost felt like the moment you started doing the Katini Skin, it amplified all of that for you, even in the music and in your approach, at least as a collaborator and as a fan of yours. Yeah. Do you feel like there is synergy between Katini Skin and Katini the artist, and how do those two worlds inform each other?
Totally. I mean, as a person, I've always been about authenticity and wanting to do my best to tell those stories. But sometimes as an artist, it can be, and we've spoken about this before, but and people that are artists want, you know, understand, but it's like you're putting yourself out there and your most vulnerable stories in the most raw way for people to like, not like, judge, or think is crazy or whatever. And that can be the most daunting part of being an artist. Whereas it was almost like building a brand. It's a similar thing, but the product isn't actually me as a person.
Right.
So being able to do that for a product alongside my music, or for a product in the most authentic way, helped me do that even more in my music. And I think a lot of what we do for Katini Skin, let me explain a little bit about the brand.
Yeah.
But we focus on ancient wisdom as a source of beauty and truth. And we're a luxury brand that's available at Bergdorf and sort of the high-end department stores. And we're expanding into Sephora soon, which is very exciting.
Yes.
But it's really based on ancient wisdom that's been around. And we draw a lot of inspiration from my cultural background across Africa, Japan, and Australia. And because I was able to really dive in and do that with the brand, I've been able to also mirror that with music. And maybe it doesn't look in the same form, but take certain sonic references or lyrical references and just really own who I am as a person and my cultural identity and my heritage, and find ways to layer that into the music. So it was almost like I wanted to do that in music, but being able to do that so openly for a brand almost gave me even more permission to be like, hey, you can do that for your music too, if that makes any sense.
It feels like it. It feels like, because I feel like you were doing that already, pulling in all your influences, but it almost feels like watching you build this brand and then pivot back into music, there's been a refinement of it, of like even the way, like it almost feels like you pick the influences for the music the same way you pick like the ingredients for the beauty brand. So it's really cool, again, as a collaborator to watch. I know for us, like Mike and myself, we're both like Black queer artists, and you know, there've been times where we struggled with owning that in our music and in our art and how that influences it, and you've never shied away from who you are and where you're from. And I always encourage new artists to do that, because there's nothing more special than just being ourselves.
100%, yeah.
Where did you learn to own that, and has that always been a strength for you? Has it been something you've shied away from before?
Yeah, it's funny. I've gone through phases, but I think the foundation, I thank my mother for it, like wholeheartedly, because she's always been this amazing woman where I was born in Japan. I was living between Japan and Ghana. And then when I was about 5 years old, my father passed and my mother decided to move us to Australia. And so there's a part of me that's like, I feel like a kid that I was like everywhere, but also nowhere at the same time. So that came later on, where I struggled with like, who am I? Like, am I Australian? Am I Japanese? Am I from Ghana? Where do I live? Like, where's my home? But what my mom instilled in my siblings and I from a very young age is like, you're exactly who you are, and you are all these things. It's not like you're half Japanese and you're half African. She's like, you're whole this and you're whole that, and you're this beautiful mix of a person. And I think, for a Japanese mom that was living in Australia, predominantly white, a white country, and even in my town I think there's like one other, person of color, like an African woman. And so even moving there, I was like, I don't look like anyone, but she constantly reminded me of like my cultural difference is my superpower. And I think in that it was really beautiful for her to do that, because I think oftentimes if you're in a place where nobody looks like you, I even moved to Australia not speaking English, so I was just like, I looked like just a pure African kid that spoke Japanese, and people were like super confused, like what is this, but she constantly every day reminded me, like, that's your superpower, and that's what's going to make you special, and that's why you're going to reach your dreams, and that's what people are going to love about you. And you believe it, when people tell you things over and over again, you start to believe it. So I really thank her for building that strong foundation.
Shout out to Mom.
Yeah, that's really dope.
Really shout out to her.
Yeah, like just hearing you say that made me think about just things that my mom would share with me growing up of like, don't let people define you or redefine you, and like just all those little nuggets that when I was growing up, it was just like, why is she telling me this? Why is this? But they stick as an adult. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, shout out to all of our moms.
I think moms like play a really special role because I mean, you believe what you hear and you are your surroundings. So if that's something, if we're lucky enough to have positive and supportive mothers. It really makes a huge difference. And I remember even when I was in my teens and I was sort of struggling between, that feeling like I'm everywhere but nowhere at the same time. Like I would have my moments of being like, I don't think I'm anything. Like, how do I fit in? Like, how do I show up as an artist, or how do I show up as a person? But then that little voice of like, that's your superpower, is what pushes you through. And eventually, if you're authentic to your soul and your heart, things fall into place.
That's amazing.
Yeah. That word support that you use, it feels so valuable in just everything we do. And I'm curious to know, how important do you think support is in what you do, like from music to business? Because so often people like to give this idea of being like self-made, or I did it on my own. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
You can't do anything on your own. I really believe it. Like, I believe you need a strong, whether they're co-creators like yourself, or a team when you're building a business, because one person can't be good at everything. So I think it's important to know what you're exceptional at, and then seek out partners to be able to support. And I mean, you can do everything at once, but I think you're going to end up hitting a limit or hitting a ceiling and not being able to break through, because we're given certain talents, and for us to really exponentially grow in all kinds of ways, you need the support. And whether that be like, as an artist, your manager or your label or your band or your, whoever that is, your songwriters, your producers. So yeah, I really believe in the importance of surrounding yourself with people that you celebrate and love each other and want to lift each other up.
I love that. And I love when you talk earlier about like manifesting this opportunity, and of course with that came all this incredible support. And I know you've talked about like the different people that you've collaborated with and you've mentored under. Obviously your approach to your art is uniform because you are the artist, you're doing the branding, you're doing the music, but they are two different industries, right? So it's I guess the beauty and wellness industry versus the music industry. When you look at the type of support you've gotten over the last couple of years in the beauty and wellness world, do you feel like there is similar support in the music business, or like what are the opportunities that you're seeing? Because obviously we've grown up in the music industry,
totally,
good and bad. So like, what do you see in the beauty and wellness space that you wish you had more of in the music industry?
I would say, it was funny. So when I started the brand, I had this fear of like, I've grown up in the music industry, and as we know as artists, it is one of the hottest industries, I would say. It's tough. Yeah. It's hard to trust people. People say things, they don't follow through. And so I was also thinking like, can I handle that in another industry? Like, I didn't know, I've never been in beauty, but I was like, am I prepared to take that much heaviness? In another industry? And I had to ask myself that honestly. And I was like, okay, like let's see how it goes. But beauty has been, obviously any industry is tough if you want to thrive and be the top of what you do and that journey along it. But it's a much more gentle industry than music.
It seems like it.
And there's more order, and there's, people, you've got a meeting, people show up at the actual time, and it is more formality to it. And I think music is so beautiful because, again, music is subjective as well. And you're acting on feeling and how you vibe with someone. But if that's the only path, for me, it was getting to a point where I was beginning to doubt myself because I wasn't seeing some of the results that in any other business you put in 10 hours and you see some kind of result, whether it's a product, whether it's a paycheck, whether it's, a relationship that's built. But in music, none of that is promised. And so having a business has actually helped balance me in terms of having nothing's ever definite, but having more stability on the business side, and then, having more of that loose feeling in the music side. And for me as a person, I just need the two, because I do have a business side of me and a business brain that I love to be able to exercise. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Something that came up for me as you were speaking, because I think for all of us, we both have that role of like business and creative. But what is it like for you being a leader? Because I feel like often in creative, there's so like level as far as like creating with people, but being a business owner, you have to lead. So what is that like for you? And what have been some of your biggest challenges as a business owner?
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge is always when I stop to overthink something, then insecurities come out. Because oftentimes, again, we've been told like you must only do one thing or you're an artist. And then there's a lot of people that are like, oh, artists can't run a business, or like they should be doing this. So how are you going to have time to be singing and then in board meetings and then so on and so forth? And so if I let myself get carried away with other people's doubts, then I begin to doubt myself. But if you come back to like, of course I could do it. Like if I'm doing it now and I'm doing a beautiful job, then I'm going to continue to grow and hopefully continue to do a better job. So the biggest challenge for me is not allowing folks that have been in either industry for longer than me to influence what I can and can't do.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard if someone's, built a $100 million brand in the beauty industry and they're, I don't know, saying something. And it's just like, oh, well, maybe I can't or maybe I should, but that's their story.
Yeah.
And we all have so many individual stories, and there's no one right way to get to a destination. And that's what makes it special, because we all have different talents, right? And it's not like one road works for all. So just making sure that you're reminding yourself, I'm me. There's no other person with the same DNA as me, with the same anything. So that means your path is going to be different to everybody else.
I love that.
Yeah. I was going to say, connecting with you and why I enjoy working with you so much is I feel like you mirror so much of my experiences as far as like our growth. And we've only known each other maybe 6 years tops.
Yeah.
And it's
I
felt
feel like I've
so
known you
many
my whole life.
Right. It's felt like lifetimes. Like I look back at that first session and it felt like little kids.
Yeah, it did,
And I
didn't it?
remember like we were fundamentally different people, confidence, in our talent and just everything. I remember like just the anxiety that exuded off of both of us.
Yeah.
We were just there like, I see your journey as a business owner, and it sort of mirrors my journey going into music development. And I just see how much more confident and sure of ourselves we show up in the art space, which is why it's so important to have this conversation, because I want to encourage more creatives to understand that like there is no shame in stepping away from your passion. There's no shame in, like you said, starting a business. There's no shame in exploring another industry.
Yeah.
Because I do see for both of us how stepping into these other worlds have made us better at the thing that we care about the most, which is our music.
100%.
So that's kind of why like a lot of the questioning for me is for you is in those spaces, because I want people to understand like the version of you that they're seeing has grown so much just through this process. And it's like, I see how Katini Skin has influenced the music, and I see how we show up in rooms different, and how we're we sat there yesterday. We had a session last night where we wrote about her lovely mother, by the way.
Yeah.
And we were able to just kind of just shoot the shit for a while. And I know versions of us that would have been anxious, like, we didn't start the song yet.
I know.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And we were like, we'll figure the song out. Like,
Totally.
let's talk about life. Let's I've been talking to a lot of younger creatives over the last year, and that's something I'm trying to instill in them is like, go to the spaces where you feel love, go to the spaces where you feel supported. The music industry is just one industry, but music is a universal language, and art is a universal
100%.
language. So I see how you've been able to take your creativity and sort of create this feedback loop of like, you're getting all this validation and support here, and I see how it funnels back into the music. So I just wanted to highlight that, because it does mirror my experience, and I'm like,
I see that in you too. I'm really, really proud of you. Like,
thank you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful to see this side of you unfold, and it's important for others to be inspired by it too. So really
people don't
proud
get
of
to
you.
grow up in the music industry together, right? It feels like you meet somebody, and then for whatever little bit of time you're anxiously running parallel, and then you kind of divvy off. So it's cool to kind of grow up in these industries and just see like how limitless our potential is.
It truly is, and I think it's just embracing every opportunity with knowing that you are an artist, but everything is just going to be additive to that. And I mean, I can speak from experience and just feeling like, oh, if I take on something else, is that going to take away from the art? But it actually adds to it, because it's experience, and it's just adding to the depth of you being a human being, which then makes your art better. So I think we just need to be comfortable with opening our eyes and our minds and hearts up to different opportunities.
Yeah.
I feel that. Yeah, I think, being in the in the entrepreneurial phase of my journey is starting to make me see that as creative as well, of like,
Definitely.
how do I take this idea that's been in my head to grow it into something larger than I can imagine? I'm curious, what advice would you give to creatives that feel like, you know, kind of like you were saying earlier, like, because I'm an artist, I can't have a business, or I can't, like, just that idea of not being able to do something and limiting themselves as being artists?
That's a good question. I would say always have a clear vision of what you want the end goal to look like, to feel like. How are you going to be? Like, really imagine even just like your aura in that moment. But don't lock yourself into the tiny little steps of how to get there in your own mind, and just be open to all opportunities. So, I mean, and manifesting, I think, is, you know, people always say, you need to manifest your dreams, but it really works. Like, I think, and I'm sure for you both too, like 10 out of 10 times where you've manifested a situation or seen something so vividly in your mind that makes your body feel it too, it's really just a matter of time until reality catches up with it. Because if you see it, if you've dreamed it, if you can almost, you know, your whole body feels it, then it just means that's for you.
Yeah.
It's just not here yet. You may not be ready for it. So never giving up on that and holding on to what that feels like, and trust you will get there.
I love that. And can you give your definition of manifesting? Because I know sometimes people manifest without action. So what does manifesting look like for you?
I've done it in all kinds of forms. Like, you know, the traditional of like you take pictures and you'll you know, look at them and be like, okay, I want my life to look like that or whatever. But in more recent years, it's just writing things down, like what I want, but not just writing them and then putting them in a book and forgetting about them, but like writing them and just feeling like, okay, why do I want that? Does that align with my values and my core and who I am? Okay, if it does, how is it going to feel like? Like, I honestly imagine, like, prime example is when I started Katini Skin, and I was like, okay, I want this brand to be in luxury. What's the biggest luxury house, like, department store in the world? I was like, Bergdorf Goodman. And people were like, you crazy. Like, you're never going to be in Bergdorf Goodman. And I was like, watch me. And so I remember, I was like, okay, I can like see our products on the shelves alongside like Tom Ford and, you know, all these like top brands. And I'm sure a lot of my friends were like, oh, just let her do her thing, you know. And I remember this was like 2021, in the middle of winter. I stood outside Bergdorf Goodman. I was like sick as a dog. I later on found out I had COVID. Like, standing outside in the snow, like staring at the building. And I'm like, I can see it. Like, I really believed it with my whole heart. And that was our first door. So, and just to sort of like give you context, I've never done anything in beauty before. Like, we have, of course, an amazing, beautiful product, but we were like 6 months out of the gate. And I think we're one of the first, you know, like newer brands from a founder of color within Bergdorf Goodman. There was like,
wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Huge. It was like, I'm like, I didn't see any other newer brands, and now they have other brands in there, which is wonderful. But it was just one of those things where I'm like, you know, I was like, I come from a lineage of kings and queens, right? In Africa, there's like so many incredible royalty there, and I'm just like, we deserve to be on the shelves alongside these amazing luxury brands. And so that's what I believed, and then thank you, universe, granted. But I really think it's just, it comes in different forms, but knowing so sure in your heart of hearts will bring it to life.
I love that.
You are clearly a master manifester, and doing an incredible job at it. And you are unlocking all of these doors for yourself, not just in the world, but obviously like creatively, mentally, just creating the space for yourself to dream bigger and create more things. What is just something, like, is there something else that you want to do now that you know that you can do anything? Like, now that it's proven, it's like, all right, I'm a beauty mogul, I'm a pop star. Like, is there a third and fourth thing you want to add on, or like is something else you're manifesting that you want to share?
I think at the moment I'm still building both. So like, I want to keep building and doing the best that I can in both fields. I mean, at beauty, we're almost 2.5, 3 years in, so we're still super, super new. So there's a lot to be done there, and always on the journey of music and creating, and I'm so grateful to have you on that. But in the long run, once I am at a place I'm like, okay, I feel like I can kind of slow down a little bit. For me, it's always been to give back and to be able to help others who haven't had the opportunity to do certain things. And I think that stems back to my dad. He was really involved in giving back, especially to a lot of charities back in Africa. But he was really a revolutionary person where he was involved in a lot of human rights. And so for me, I'm like, okay, if I can keep working and get to a place where I can help others that need it, that would be like the ultimate dream. Because, once you have everything, if you don't share it, what does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Also, Fenty, we're coming for you.
Move out of the way.
Watch out, Rihanna.
Katini Skin is coming.
Yeah. Taking over. No, that's beautiful. I think giving back is so important. Again, when we talk about things that have helped, at least for myself, that's helped me evolve. Yeah. And I'm a student of Oprah, so she always talks about working in service. But when I began to work in the service of trying to uplift marginalized voices and just trying to be a resource to other creatives through things like this, my whole life changed, because that's really what it's about. Is like,
100%.
how do we give back?
That.
Like, you can be self-indulgent as an artist, and you should like create your art and do what you have to do. But in the grand scheme of things, like, what are you really contributing to the world? So I love to know that is a goal of yours, because you already do that so much through the art and through the beauty stuff. It is in such service, like you said, even just educating people on these ancient wisdoms that you've had, like, that is a super service. And then seeing how that influences your music. So I'm excited to see how you even take that to the next level.
I have a question for both of you, because we all work in service, and I know for myself at times, sometimes I could be so in it that I get burnt out, but I'm curious to know, how do you not burn out while being in service to others?
That's a good question. Do you want I like to look at it as, well, actually, what my grandmother sort of taught me when I was growing up, she was like, and this sort of goes back to self-care, right? In whatever form that is, whether you're eating healthy food, whether you've got time to yourself, you have to give yourself love. So then you have enough energy and enough love to go and mirror that with others and pour that into other people. So it's about filling your own cup to, in a sense, where you have all this joy and energy to be able to share that. So it's a balancing play, and you have to be in a place in your life where you have that bandwidth too, but at the same time, be conscious enough where sometimes I can be this way where I'm like, I'm always busy, but it's like, hey, can I take an hour out of my day to do something of service? Of course we can, So I think just finding that balance to do so, and reminding yourself that I'm doing this, but what's my larger purpose, and what do I want to leave in this world? What's the message that I want to leave to people? And that will help you manage your time a little bit more, and energy, and know where to spend that, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for me, I've had to become very protective over my space and when things are for me.
Yeah.
Because just working in songwriting was always working in service, and I would show up, and some people can be very closed off, but some people will give you their whole life, and you're like, oh shit, like, this is a lot to take on. Like,
yeah.
And I would take all of that on in times where I didn't have the tools to, I wasn't journaling, I wasn't meditating, I wasn't making sure I did, write music for myself. So those spaces have become more sacred for me. Like, if I have a busy day like today, I think we talked about it this morning. If I have a busy day like today, a version of me would have been so enamored with just the rush. I would have rushed through the whole day. Yeah. Today I took that 2-hour break in between for myself, so I can show up and be present.
Totally. Because
what's the point?
Exactly. And I think sometimes we live in this world where we're constantly busy, especially in New York City, right? We're rushing. It's almost like a habit to be like, oh my God, I'm so busy. It's like, what the hell am I busy doing? Okay, yes, I'm working, but it's important to be intentional about the steps you're taking. Otherwise, you end up rushing through it, and it's not as meaningful as it could be, because you're still running the same race. You're still expelling the same energy. But if you're not getting the beauty out of the day or out of the moment, then what's the point of us doing it?
Yeah.
So I think it's that constant reminder of Like, I like the 2 hours that you took today of just...
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to, because I think I remember being the person that would just barely make it to things and just be like,
I know. I was
I
like
made
that
it,
too. Yeah.
why?
Why? Why are you
What is
having
the
it
reason?
all the time?
Right.
Yeah.
There's never a reason, especially knowing how New York City trains run and everything. Give yourself a buffer. That has changed my life.
It also changes your aura too. Like, you'll show up in a room, and if you're like present and comfortable, people treat you differently. And you attract different energies, because I really believe energy is like wavelength. Like, whatever you're putting out into the world kind of comes and mirrors back to you.
Yeah.
So if it's this like anxious, scrambling energy, that's what comes back to you. And if I reflect on certain times in my life, it's like, if that's what I'm putting out, oftentimes a gig might be canceled, or a meeting that I wanted is gone. Whereas if I show up with like presence and intention and some sort of grace, that's what comes back to you.
You do such a great job of that, and that's why I included all of that in your intro, because I kid you not, like, you show up so chill. Like, I remember there was like the point when we first reconnected that our phones stopped communicating, and I would get places and be like so sad or feel bad, like, I'm sorry. You're just like, it's fine. Oh, and then when I learned about like your upbringing and like how meditation was so important in your household and everything, I was like, oh, she's just like, she's learned how to do this from young, like just kind of keep even energy. But it's infectious. Like, it's fun to be around you and just kind of be chill. And like, I hope more people learn how to tap into that, because the world's only going to get more anxious.
I know.
Social media is only going to get worse.
Yeah.
So like, we need those tools. So.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, I guess my last question that I've been liking to ask everybody this season, just out of curiosity, with everything that you do right now, where's the place that you feel the most creative? What place is servicing you the most as a creative?
Oh, that's a good question. So where creativity best comes out?
Like, where does Katini come alive? Like, where is she just excited to get her hands dirty, whatever that might be? And it could be multiple places, but
I think I'm hyper focused right now on both the skincare business and music. And I like to do those things from home. I think I spent a lot of time making, and I also think, because I'm a Taurus, Tauruses love to make their homes nice and comfortable and work from there. And I love to do that. But I would say for music, my inspiration comes when I leave New York City. It's almost like when I'm in the plane, it's like, oh, it all falls into place, because I'm looking down at how tiny we are and how tiny our problems are. And it allows you to kind of detach from that. So yes, I like to create from home, but the place where larger inspiration comes is when I away from the everyday busyness, and I can look at things from a wider perspective.
So that just means we have to start doing our sessions on planes.
We gotta work hard enough so we can.
We have to get a retreat. That's what we're asking for. Investors.
Yes.
Katini needs to do a retreat to finish her album. So preferably somewhere by a beach.
Warm.
Warm.
Yes.
I love that. We were talking about getting out of our spaces. We talk about it a lot, actually, because Mike has lived in a few different cities, and I'm just coming back from LA, and how being in different spaces has impacted how we think and how we move. But even just something as simple as going to Texas is going to be away for a couple weeks. I know how our brains sort of just take off running when you're in a different environment. And you're just like, oh, okay, like something just like wakes up.
Yep.
And New York was like that for me when I lived in LA. Like LA, I can write all day for everybody else. When I got to New York, it was like, what does Yanni Blue want to talk about? Like, I'd only write my own music in New York.
Yep.
So I love that. First of all, I love that you are feeling equally creative in both, because that's the point. Is like you've been able to branch out, but you feel fulfilled in all those spaces.
Totally.
Which is really cool.
I think it's fulfillment, but I guess another thing that I wanted just to add to an earlier question is work on both things, but it's also a huge part of it is discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we don't get taught that as an artist. Sometimes it's like write when you want or like overwrite and then you feel burnt out or whatever. But it's that balance of knowing how much to push yourself and then when to put the brakes on before you sort of like burn yourself out. And I recently read a page of my dad's diary, and he was like, success is sacrifice, always be disciplined. And I was just like, what he means by that? But I'm like, oh, it makes a lot of sense, because you want to have success, not sacrificing like the good things, but sometimes you have to sacrifice, extra playtime or whatever it is in this moment to push things forward. But also continue to wake up every day and move in that way. So I would say discipline in a gentle way is important.
Yeah, and that's a muscle I think people have to work. I think to your point, like it has to be something over time that you learn how to that balance. We're not if we all were born knowing the balance, we'd all be Rihanna.
Exactly. We're still figuring
we'd
that
all be
out.
Fenty. But no, we have to figure. But I think that's the beauty of letting every experience inform you, as opposed to like being afraid or running away or like how do I don't like when I'm late. Let me not be late anymore.
Yeah.
I don't like so that balance is something I hope more people give themselves grace in figuring out, because that figuring out that balance for me feels just as creative as writing a song.
Definitely. And it's also character building. It's like you're building the person you're going to be for the next 50 to 70 years. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
And if you want to show up in a certain way and attract certain opportunities, that requires attention. And we're like, if you look at like everybody is like a diamond, right? And if you just sort of leave it there, it gets dust, it gets dirty, it gets mud gets thrown on it. And then the shiny, beautiful purity of it disappears. So I like to look at whether it's mindfulness, whether it's meditation, as you're constantly wiping that diamond. Mm-hmm. So you constantly shine and you constantly stay pure and you're constantly, in this lively place because you're giving yourself that time.
I just pictured the merch around everyone's a diamond. So if you don't do it, I will definitely be doing the everyone is a diamond merch. That was an incredible analogy. I think we can wrap on that. That was.
I have one more question before we wrap though. Being that this is the Creator's Toolkit, what is a tool in your toolkit that's supporting you in your journey?
Positive thinking.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Positive thinking and optimism.
Okay.
Like, don't ever limit yourself, because we're our worst enemy. If you can take that away, then the sky is your limit.
That's what a diamond would say.
Yeah.
That's gonna. Don't be shocked when we write that song.
Okay, let's write it. Yeah, I'm ready.
That's what a diamond would say.
Again, Rihanna, move over. We don't care.
Right. We can collaborate.
We can.
Like let's all but let us get some shine. Katini, let the world know where to follow you, what pages they should be checking out, where they can get Katini Skin. I use it on my beard sometimes, and I also learned how to do this from one of your interviews.
Oh, I love that. Facial massages.
Right.
You can find me at Katini Music on Instagram, Katini Skin for the skincare, and then katinimusic.com or katiniskin.com. So pretty easy for both. Yay. Look forward to connecting with you all.
Yes, everybody go check out Katini's music, check out Katini Skin. And I really hope that you take a lot of what she said today and into heart, because you're watching a master manifester at work. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yay.
Bye.
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 This shit hard. This shit hard. Oh my God.
Out in New York like a star, though. They look for me like a Waldo. They look for me like I'm Carmen. Nigga move more like I'm Dora. I'm just a city explorer. World in my palm.